recipe today. Our
Okay, thank you.
pancakes. And then this is stuff we're gonna talk about today.
Thank you.
Last one. Start and see if anybody else pops in at the last one.
Okay. Anything.
This is good content.
Mhm.
This is gonna help somebody out. Now, we can't do this, sir. We can't do this, sir. She got it private, it needs to be public, so my friends can see it, like Miss Wanda can't see it, I'm gonna go down there today and make it public, cause I should have let somebody look at my phone.
And it was fine.
She got it private on her page, like her friends only, so people that's my friends, it's not her friends that can't see the little program, the graduation ceremony.
Mhm.
Like, you know, somebody,
Yeah.
summer program.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, where is it at?
And did,
On TikTok?
Mhm.
Yeah, I see him like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see him like that.
That's, I think that's how I really know. I mean, he's not even my friend. He's not my friend.
It's not,
No. But, I just, because I don't have a picture or anything.
I know.
And I'm just
And what was your race again?
Starseed.
Star, I know it's a X. It goes to my soul.
I'm Starseed, so I
Where did
just.
you get the name from?
That's just what I believe in. That's just what I believe in. So I didn't put that, I didn't get too far into that, but then TikTok is really sensitive. With TikTok, it's like if you don't have a profile pic, they think that you are troubling. They're really sensitive over there. And TikTok is very different from Facebook. And
It is.
and stuff.
I don't really like TikTok that much.
No, I really don't, because I can't, the people are like paranoid. Like, if you just sit in before you go into their live, if you just sit there to see what they're talking about, oh, we see we got somebody here, honey, just go ahead and,
I see your heart.
it's just begging. I don't like it.
So Melissa and Mr. Aaron from.
You're right about that.
Yeah.
He had an appointment last week.
Yeah, she said that's it.
Today, she made a suggestion, so I said, maybe we'll make it for next week.
Okay.
Volunteers.
So they're banking on next week,
Oh,
so I need to send that to Kelsey too.
Okay, that sounds good.
You can't invite them to your life. I don't.
All right, y'all, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
Good. My name is Cindy Knowles. I'm the Family Consumer Science Agent for
Okay.
Extension. Have y'all heard of Cooperative Extension?
I have.
You have?
Yeah, I think it was Miss Letha Lee before she was
Uh-huh.
retired.
Yep, I love Miss Letha. Hello.
Hello.
Who's that? Who's that? I know that voice.
Oh, Lord Jesus. I'm in the front.
Is that Howard?
Yes, I am. I'm trying to learn how to cook this and make ready for you guys. How you doing?
Here's some handouts for you.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so Extension, we teach nutrition I teach nutrition education, but we are affiliated with NC State University and A&T University. So both of the land grant universities help to provide all of our education. So we have specialists at both universities that help to create curriculum and pass that along. And this is one of the curriculums that was created. It was NC State, I think it was the North Carolina Department for Health, Eat Smart, Move More, Weigh Less, which is a committee of a lot of different nutrition professionals that serve on that committee. And this program came about around 2016. So I started with Extension December of 2015, and then it was released to agents to be able to teach in 2016. So I've been doing this program for about 10 years. This is my first time doing kind of these pop-ups at the library, but typically this program is a 6-week series. So people come for 6 weeks total and learn a different topic each week. So I've been here, Erin, this is my third time?
Yep.
I believe. So we covered kind of more about the why behind going med the first week. The second week was all about fats and nuts and things like that. And then this week is more about whole grains, rethinking your sweets. So I kind of combined two to make it fit into 4 sessions here for the library.
Mhm.
And then we'll talk a little bit about reading labels as well. So we're deep diving into one of the simple steps this week, but there is a lot more information that we've had over the last couple weeks and that we'll have next week as well. So what interested y'all in the Mediterranean diet? Is there anything in particular?
Something new? Yes, something new.
New?
Yeah.
Good, yeah.
Something new and support the library.
Good, okay. Love it, yeah.
Something new.
Just
I
something
didn't
new.
even know about it. I came to check out a book that it was telling me about.
Oh,
I didn't even know they had programs at the library.
yeah.
I don't even know when the library is open.
Well, Miss Erin is the adult programs person. So she's coordinated with me to do some different stuff at the library, and it's kind of why I'm here doing this today.
Reese.
That feels good.
Oh, you got your thing on?
It's okay.
So a little bit about the Medway and the specifics on eating the Mediterranean diet. The basis of the Mediterranean diet is really eating lots and lots of fruits and vegetables. So the core of the diet is trying to make sure that we have fruits and vegetables for all of our meals, all of our snacks, and really this is what we want to focus on the plate. I always say the traditional way, I think, especially as Southerners, how we have been told to eat, right, is that you figure out your meat first, and then you figure out all your stuff, right? And you gotta have that starch, and you've gotta have your regular side, and then maybe some bread or something. So this is kind of flipping that to where we really focus on what fruits and vegetables am I gonna have first, and then I'll start thinking about the other components of my plate as well. So the second is eating whole grains, which we'll talk about a little bit more today. And so we want to try to make whole grains kind of be our go-to for most of our grain type foods that we're eating. And the guidelines, previous dietary guidelines stated that we need to have at least half of our grains to be whole throughout the day. But the Mediterranean diet really focuses on grains, eating grains as grains, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a few minutes, and kind of getting away from more of the processed grains. The third step is to eat beans and legumes, so kind of making these our plant-based protein go-tos. A big reason behind this is beans really fit into two of our nutrition categories. They fit into protein, but they also fit into your vegetable group, and they are loaded with fiber. So most Americans don't get enough fiber as a whole. I mean, just in general, we don't eat enough fiber, and beans are a great source of that, while also being a lower calorie food, so they're not like overly heavy compared to something like your whole grains might have a little bit more calories. The other part is trying to have fish and seafood at least 2 to 3 times a week. In particular, you want to have your fattier fish like salmon, mackerel, at least once a week. That is mainly because of the omegas that you get from our fatty fish and seafood. They, of course, are really good for our brain health, but also for our heart as well. So we're going to try to incorporate those weekly if we can. And then that's the next one. Eating nuts and seeds. So also trying to snack on these more frequently, have these as a part of our diet more regularly. Replacing solid fats like butter, lard, coconut oil is also a solid fat. With our healthier fats, in particular olive oil is kind of our go-to oil that we see a lot with the Mediterranean diet. And then using herbs and spices instead of salt to flavor our foods, kind of getting away from all that sodium. The option to have red wine, could not bring that for you guys today, I'm so sorry. We're in a public building. But you can have red wine. Men get 2 glasses, they get the best of everything, it's not fair.
Right.
Women, we just get 1, but trying to have that just mainly, you can get the same benefits from grape juice as you do wine. So if you don't really like wine, you can choose like a grape juice, and you're getting a lot of antioxidants from the wine, or the grape juice, which is why they talk about incorporating that. The other 3 components are trying to move more, so just moving our body more throughout the day, trying to be a little bit more conscious about what we're doing, how many steps we're taking, how are we moving our body. The next one is enjoying meals. So we are people that we enjoy being around other people. I know not everybody is a people person, but I'm sure we all experienced some of that in COVID, right? When we were kind of isolated and not around people as often, we saw how much we really crave being around people and part of a community. So they found that in the Mediterranean region, this was a big component of their lifestyle, and it really does help us live a healthier lifestyle. And then the last one is limiting the amount of sugar that we're having throughout the day. So this is in particular from like more sugar-sweetened beverages, more of our grain-based desserts. We see a lot of sugar there, like donuts, pie, things like that, and then other processed foods as well. And just to kind of give you a background of the Mediterranean diet, it is how they historically ate in the Mediterranean region. So if you decide that you just really want to go on a trip to the Mediterranean right now, I'm sure it would still be beautiful, but they're not going to eat like this. So this is really looking at the history of the Mediterranean region and how they historically ate. And then they really studied that and all the health benefits that they had from living this whole entire lifestyle. So eating this way, but also the other components of moving around, the way that their environment was set up. They walked everywhere rather than drove vehicles. Sure, it might not have been 95 degrees there, 100 degrees, right, where it makes it really hard for us to walk around. But they did a lot of movement, and then of course had that community aspect, which is important as well. So a little bit about what sets the Medway apart from other eating patterns. For one, it's very simple. We try to use simple ingredients. There are some, I'll give y'all information for the website because there there is a website that you can go on. And there are some recipes that are a little things that we don't have around here, but a lot of the recipes are very simple, easy to make. I'm gonna make some banana pancakes today. I had all the ingredients already at my house. I didn't have to buy anything. So it's one of those things that like, it can be very cost effective, easy to find, that type of stuff. It's also very delicious. So we do focus on more fats, and fats help us to feel satisfied, which makes us feel like, okay, we had a good meal. This is really good. Kind of tingles our taste buds a little bit when we eat more high-fat foods. So we still incorporate things like olive oil and avocado and other healthy fats that are good for us, and that just still kind of tingles those taste buds a little bit. And it's satisfying, so when you finish, you're not like, I'm still kind of hungry, or I think I want a little bit more. You feel satisfied, like you had a good meal. So the 7 simple steps. The first one is to change your protein. So we did that the first lesson. Last week we did swap your fats and snack on nuts and seeds. Steps 3 and 4 are together, and I believe we're doing those next week. And that is eat more fruits and eat more vegetables. And then today we're going to go over make your grains whole and rethink your sweets. So 7 ways that you can, simple steps to completely go more of the Mediterranean diet. So our focus, should say simple step 6, not 5. Simple step 6 is to choose more whole grains. So this is things like oatmeal, quinoa, brown rice, popcorn. All of those are considered whole grains. And if we're choosing things like bread or pasta, we want to look for the word whole as the first ingredient on that ingredient list. And we're going to go over reading labels in just a few minutes as well, and so we'll kind of cover where that is exactly. But we want to look for things that say like whole grain wheat or whole grain oats are typically whole grain, so you might not see it say oats, but your goal is to see that first word whole at the front. So you have a sheet with this information on it. This is our carbohydrate choice continuum. We are not all about absolutes. Like you absolutely cannot have this food. It will totally wreck your diet. That's not what we're about. When we go on super restrictive diets, it makes us crave those things more, and we just tend to not stick to the healthy diet. So our goal is to really make this more of a lifestyle change, and this is just what we kind of gravitate towards for those meals. So we have a continuum of things that we want to eat more of, and then of course things you might eat every now and then or less often. So on the left side, and this is carbohydrates as a whole, so it's not just talking about grain-based foods, but your fruits, vegetables, beans, all of those are carbs. They fit into our carb category. And we want to eat lots of those. They're going to be lower in calories, really high in nutrients like your vitamins, minerals, things like that, fiber, all of that good stuff that we want to make sure we're getting plenty of throughout the day. The next one is more of our unprocessed whole grains. So this would be if you were to go out into a wheat field and pick a kernel of wheat and you take it under a microscope, this would be a whole grain. Okay, so that's what we're really looking for, is if you were to go out and pick it, harvest it, what you would have. So this is things like bulgur. You have a whole list actually on the cooking whole grain sheet. Where is it on this? I believe it's on this one that has some different, oh, no, it's on the front, I'm sorry. So, quinoa, oatmeal, brown rice, popcorn, bulgur, farro. I've been seeing that at Walmart lately. I don't think they used to have that. So all of those are going to be what we consider unprocessed whole grains. Our lightly processed whole grains are the next. So this would be things like your pastas, your lightly processed oats, or like oatmeal, things like that. This would also be, well, those are the main two that they list. We get into more of the foods made with whole grains, but they're a little bit more processed, and that's when you get into like your breads, your crackers, they've got tortillas kind of mentioned here, cereals, all of those fit into that middle section right there. And then you start getting into more refined grains that do not have any whole grains on them. So that would be like your white pasta, and then your white bread, your white crackers, things like that. I don't love that they put potatoes here in this section. White potatoes are still a great option. They're very healthy for you. I think that it's there listed because they're talking about things that are made with, that are refined. So you think about our potato products that are more processed, and that would be things like French fries, tater tots, potato chips. All of those are going to fit more into that section. Versus actual white potatoes, still a great option. Those would fit into your very first category. And then the last one is more of our foods and beverages that have lots of added sugar in them. So this, of course, is going to be like your really sugared up cereals, or your grain-based desserts, or really any products that have lots and lots of sugar. Sadly, there's lots of those out there. So there's a couple of different things that were really floating around the internet, mainly in around the 2016 time that this came out, and even before that, because I remember I used to work in a restaurant and I would have people talk to me about the Wheat Belly book, and people were obsessed with these two books. So these are both two best-selling books. So Erin might have them on the shelf around here. Maybe, maybe not.
Maybe.
They're not. We don't want to go by them anyway. So throw them away. No, just kidding. But the two main books were Grain Brain and Wheat Belly, that kind of popularized the concept that wheat or grains in general are making us fat. So that was kind of the basis of the book. So the claims include that wheat today is different than in decades past, that wheat triggers diseases like diabetes, Alzheimer's, depression, headaches, epilepsy, and ADHD, that wheat causes belly fat, and that wheat makes the brain not function properly. So what really we're finding is that we're just eating too many refined grains. So it's not necessarily wheat, it's all of the refined grains that we're adding to our diet. So in the US in particular, almost 40% of the refined grains we see come from things like yeast bread, like your hamburger buns, and pizza. Does that track? Probably seems pretty right. I mean, a lot of people eat hot dogs and hamburgers,
Yeah.
especially around here. Probably this weekend, there's going to be a lot of those, right? And then pizza's the other one that we see. A lot of folks, they'll have like a pizza on Friday, like one night of the week they eat pizza. So pretty accurate. We, as Americans, eat tons of the refined grains, especially in these two forms. So what we found is that what we're eating matters, of course. So wheat versus refined grains, there's a total difference. Eating lots of refined grains is associated with more body fat. Eating 3 servings of whole grains a day is associated with less belly fat. So, of course, they're not the same. We have to think about what we're eating with those refined grains. If you think about something like this, eating pizza, lots of cheese, lots of grease on there, hamburgers. You can't make a good hamburger unless it's 80-20 at least, right? So you probably have more fat that way. Hot dogs are going to be more fatty, right? So it's what we're kind of eating with these foods, but also there's no whole grains or any benefit with those either. So what Americans typically eat is around 7 ounces of grains per day, but less than 1 ounce is a whole grain. So this is just like showing bread as a easy way, an easy visual for us. You can see we're just definitely not eating the amount of whole grains we should have. So this is a little picture of a whole grain kernel, and here's some examples of whole grains. So you can take any of those, cut them open, and put them under a microscope, and you would see 3 different parts. Okay, So you probably recognize at least the term bran and germ, right? We heard of wheat germ, you can buy that at the store. Bran, like bran flakes or bran muffins. So the bran is gonna be the outermost layer, and that really helps to kind of protect that inner part of your grain. And the bran has a ton of fiber. So all of our fiber is found in the bran of the grain. The germ, which is that innermost layer, is where all of our nutrients are. So that's like the nutrient-packed core. You get a lot of B vitamins from there. There's also like a little bit of healthy fats, not much, but there's a little bit of fats there. So lots of nutrition right in that center, the middle, centermost core. The endosperm is what we're typically left with what I like to call white grain. So if you have like white bread or white pasta, you'll just have this endosperm, versus if you have the whole wheat bread, you'll have the germ, endosperm, and bran. The endosperm has mainly carbohydrates, like gives you some energy. That's why some folks, if they eat, if they're diabetic and they eat white bread or white pasta, it spikes their blood sugar, right? So that's because it's just mainly carbs. So your body's gonna eat it real quick, and then you typically will kind of crash after. So we really want to aim to have all three of these parts, and the only way we can do that is to eat the whole grain. Whole grain.
So when you're eating the enriched bread, right?
Yeah.
White bread, what is it? Is that endosperm? The enriched white bread?
It's still the endosperm. They're usually adding like vitamins and minerals back to it.
Mm-hmm.
So probably some of the vitamins and minerals you might get from the germ, might not be all of that. You won't have the fiber unless they add fiber to it, because sometimes they can add some fiber in there, which is usually more of our insoluble fiber that they're adding. So that's when you see that term enriched, it's just adding vitamins, minerals, that type of thing back to it. There's usually a lot more kind of added to those foods as well.
Yes.
You'll see a longer ingredient list.
Mm-hmm.
So we really want to start kind of going back to the basics, like eating food as it is, right? Rather than it being very, very processed. So some terms we want to look for, one is multigrain. This can be, it might have like several different whole grains, or it might have several refined grains, or it could have a mix of both. So just because it's multi-grain does not mean it's multiple whole grains. It just means it's got different grains in it. 100% wheat, again, there's not the term whole, so it could still be a refined wheat kernel that they have taken that that germ and that bran out of. It's still a wheat kernel. Just because I strip these two parts out doesn't mean it's now not a wheat kernel. It is, it's just not a whole wheat kernel. So if you see 100% wheat, it could still not be a whole wheat bread or product. And then made with whole grains is the other one that you want to look for. This doesn't mean that all of the grain is whole grain. It might just mean that some of the grain is whole grain. The other thing we want to pay attention to is there's a lot of products out there that talk about whole grains. Oh, it's got whole grains in it. The cereal is whole grain, or the Chewy bars are whole grain. What do y'all think about those two foods? Like, what do those probably have in them that's not so good for us?
Sugar.
The sugar, yeah. It's gonna be loaded with sugar, and we talk about in the first lesson how there's not just one part of the Mediterranean diet that is important and suddenly makes everything Mediterranean. Like if you take French fries and cook them in olive oil, they're still French fries. They're not any healthier for you. That's not what we're talking about with the Mediterranean diet. Or if you just slather a bunch of olive oil or something on a big old cake, not that you would, but it doesn't suddenly make it healthy, right? So same thing here. Just because we have whole grains in it doesn't mean it's still a healthy food for us. So these are kind of tiny, but you can see that enriched flour on the right. And then on the left, we have whole wheat flour. So the one on the left is going to be your whole grain bread versus the right. The right, you might just see it and say, oh, it's a brown bread, it's wheat, it looks good, I'll pick it up. But when you actually look at the ingredients list, you'll find that it's not a whole wheat bread. So I said this earlier, but we want to try to eat grains as grains, not grains, not foods made from grains. So really eating more of those less processed foods and stop eating so much like bread and crackers and things like that. So a couple different things that you can kind of explore, or we're going to talk about in terms of trying to eat more whole grains. For one is oatmeal, and then pasta, and then rice. These are 3 easy places that we can start eating more whole grains without really having to put a whole lot of effort into it. So the first one is trying to choose the right kind of oatmeal. There's like 50 million when you go to the grocery store. You're trying to figure out what's the best option. So really this just shows you in the list what's the least processed versus what's the most processed. So your steel cut is going to be your least processed option, and it is just oat grains, or they might be called oat groats if you've ever read that somewhere. Those are just chopped into small pieces. So that is what you're buying when you get the steel cut. They take a very long time to cook, but you're getting the whole grain when you eat that type of oatmeal. The next one is your old-fashioned oats, and these are steel cut oats that have been steamed and then rolled flat. So they've been chopped up in tiny pieces, been steamed and then rolled. And these are going to be, of course, next in terms of processing. They have a lot less, like shorter of a cooking time, and these are really good for cooking or for breakfast cereals. The quick cooking oats is the next one. So these are the same concept, but they have been rolled even thinner and cut into smaller pieces. They're very, very quick to cook. And some recipes will call for quick cooking oatmeal. That's just mainly depends on how long that recipe is going to be cooked, things like that. So it depends on the recipe. But as far as like having a bowl of oatmeal in the morning, that's not going to make you feel very full. The next one is your instant, and I think a lot of people gravitate towards this one because it's a quick, easy grab. A lot of times we're busy in the morning, we're just trying to get out the door. So this is your pre-cooked oatmeal that's been dried, and then all you're doing is rehydrating it by adding that water or milk to it. So we really want to try to get either one of these on the left. I gravitate towards the old-fashioned just because I can use it in a lot of different recipes. I'll use that instead of the quick cooking. You can make granola with it. You can use it for oatmeal. I mean, there's a ton of different recipes for that one. These are what are going to make you feel fuller. So I've had some people who are like, I get up every morning and I'm trying to eat my oatmeal and like, feel good. And I get so hungry when I eat. And it's because they're eating the instant, which does kickstart their metabolism, but it's not going to help them to feel full and make it to lunch. So within an hour or two, they're starving because they didn't really have anything that made them feel full enough. So that's what we tend to get with instant. If you're traveling or something like that, that can be a good option. But these other two are going to be kind of our go-tos. You can cook steel cut oats and not have to sit there all day to watch it. A way to do this is 4 cups of water to a cup of oats. This will give you 4 servings of oatmeal. And you bring it to a full boil, cover it, and put like something under it because you have glass probably in your refrigerator and it can bust the glass if that pot's hot. Sit it on that dish towel and put it in the fridge overnight, and in the morning you'll have oatmeal. all you have to do is stick it in the microwave, heat it up, and you're good. So this is a really fast way to make some steel cut oats if you choose to buy that kind. And I mentioned these, we're gonna be making these in just a few minutes, but this is the banana oatmeal pancakes. It is one of my favorite recipes. It's very simple ingredients. It's like bananas, oatmeal, eggs, vanilla extract, baking powder. I think I said an egg. And then you put fruit on top. So very simple, very easy. The next flip that I wanted to talk about was the pasta. So trying to switch to more of our whole grain pasta is a great way to get whole grains in. There's tons of different varieties out there, options, things like that. But our goal here is, even if we're eating pasta, is to eat lots of vegetables with it. So bulk up your pasta with more vegetables. This is one recipe, I think I made this one 2 weeks ago, and it is the whole wheat pasta with pesto and vegetables. And it took me 10 minutes-ish, 5-10 minutes to make. It was very fast. I did have to pre-cook the pasta, but I stir-fried the vegetables and all that right here. And it's very good. It's on the website. So I kind of mentioned this already, but adding more vegetables to your grains, but you can also add more fruit to your grains as well. So instead of just eating like boring old white rice, adding it to some other stuff, choosing brown rice, and pumping it up with lots of vegetables or fruits added in there as well. So I've made the chicken and vegetable fried rice many times in our cooking class, and people love that one. I've also done the curry quinoa salad. Some people don't like curry, so it just depends on your preferences, but I don't really love curry, but I still think that one's good. It's got a good flavor to it. And then the whole wheat couscous salad is one of my favorites. It's just a couple different dried fruits. I think there's a fresh orange in there, and then a bunch of herbs and nuts, and some couscous, and then you make a vinaigrette to go on top of it. And it is so good. So good. So any questions about whole grains and choosing more whole grains? Okay, so we'll jump into a little bit about label reading. A big component of the Mediterranean diet is being more mindful about our eating choices. So mindfulness is being aware of what's on your plate, but also like the whole eating experience. Where am I eating? Why am I eating? Who am I with? What am I doing? Am I driving in the car while I eat my potato chips? Am I sitting on the couch watching a show and I just ate, a whole bag of cookies? Like, what is it? What is it that we're doing? We're paying attention instead of just mindlessly eating. So, one of the best ways to do this is, of course, to read the labels. Make sure that we know what is in the foods that we're eating when we buy at the store. So, the label, nutrition facts label is required to be on any product that you buy. So you will see that written on the back if you buy it from the grocery store, unless it is a fruit or a vegetable. So I always say the best thing is to aim for buying things that don't have a label, because that's probably going to be a fruit or vegetable. So our label got revamped in 2016. I believe they had until 2022, I think, to make that change, but at this point all of the labels you see will be our new nutrition facts label. So I'm not even going to go into the side-by-side comparison, but some of the old labels were still, I think, floating around out there, so sometimes we would talk about these two. Our nutrition facts label, I'll just go through that. Our serving sizes did change as well, so whenever they changed the label, they changed what a typical serving is. This is because they looked at what people were consistently eating, or just what made sense. Like if you go to the gas station and you get a soda, you're probably going to drink that whole bottle. Previously, companies were trying to be a little bit more sneaky for those people who were reading the label, and they would put something like 2 servings per container in like a single serve bottle of soda. So they revamped that. Sometimes you will see like whole container, for instance, like if you get a pint of ice cream, sometimes we just, we're women here. We get in those moods, we need a whole pint of ice cream. It's okay. But people would eat the whole thing. Next thing you know, you've ate the whole entire pint of ice cream. The pint of ice cream might now have 520 calories per container and tell you that whole container has that. But then it also will be written out to say 3 servings equals this, because people were not eating 4 servings in 1 pint. They were getting more like 3. So that all had a revamp as well. So I just mentioned the serving size. So this is really just explaining how much is in the product that you're having. It's not necessarily a serving suggestion, like you have to eat only 2/3 of a cup. It's just telling you, hey, we probably are gonna eat around 2/3 of a cup, and here's how much might be in it. You can eat more of that, you can eat less of that. You're just gonna have to be mindful that it will adjust the rest of the label. The calories, of course, are the next section. So this really just tells us how many calories are in 1 single serving. And your calories, think of it as energy. So it's what helps us to have energy to do different things throughout the day, for your body to have energy. We need enough calories for our body to function and to be able to do all that it has to do. Your next section, mainly the yellow parts here that we're talking about, are the things we want to try to limit more frequently. So this is going to be eating like fats, mainly saturated fats, trans fats, cholesterol, sodium, added sugar. All of those things do increase our risk for certain diseases, mainly things like heart disease, cancers, high blood pressure. So we want to be mindful of that and try to not overdo it on those nutrients. And then in the carb section, we do have our sugar found there. Our total carbs is going to be your fiber and your sugar together. And that's typically more important for those folks who are diabetic, who are really paying attention to their carb count for the day. I also like to explain a little bit about what we call macronutrients. So that's our fat, our carb, and our protein are the 3 macronutrients. Every food is going to be made up of one of those, or more than one of those. And our fats are really important because our more unsaturated fats are really good for our brain health. So they help us to feel good, our brain to do all the things that it needs to do. But also our unsaturated fats are good for our heart as well. And then we go into our carbohydrates. Your carbohydrates are what give you energy. So think about it's your gas in your car. You can have not great gas, it's gonna, not give you a lot of energy for a very long period of time, but you might have a little bit of energy to go for just a little bit, and that would be something like candy or things like that gives you that quick energy, and then it kind of goes away pretty quick. If you have a carbohydrate that has more fiber in it, that's going to slow the absorption of that food, and so you will not spike and come back down. You won't crash. What we think about like a sugar crash.
Oh, yes.
It'll help to kind of level you out. So that's why we want to have more fiber in some of the things that we're eating, so that we are a little bit more level. We're not having those peaks. We didn't really talk about protein, but protein is really what helps to be the building blocks for anything in our body. So it helps to repair things in our body. It helps to transfer things in our body. Fat helps to transfer things in our body, like to different parts of our body. So we want to make sure we're getting plenty of protein as well. But that is really dependent on you as an individual, which is why we don't typically see a daily value percentage next to that. The bottom section is all of our vitamins and minerals. And these had a revamp whenever they did the label change in 2016. So vitamin D was added to it because they found Americans are deficient in vitamin D. Calcium was already on there. That was the only one that was the same. I think iron was added, and then potassium was added. Potassium was mainly added because there's a lot of medications that interferes with, so people need to be aware of how much potassium they're getting. The most important thing you'll probably learn from this whole label is how to use the daily value. Anybody use this part of the label? Y'all ever look at that?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
So the daily value is important because it can tell you if a food is like high or low in a nutrient. So if something says 5% or less, that tells you it's really low in that nutrient. So for this one, this food is low in saturated fat because it's got 5%. It's low in cholesterol. Those are the only two we have 5% at. 20% means it's high. So this food doesn't have a lot of fat, but it's got a lot of added sugar to it. It's also got some calcium and some iron in there as well. So those nutrients, we would say this is a high nutrient food for those things. It's got a lot of added sugar, but it's also got some minerals in there as well. So you want to use that to figure out if a food is like a better option for you, or maybe not so great option. For instance, sodium, if you're looking at a frozen food, you might pay attention to the sodium because it might say 35% of your daily value. Our sodas that have a lot of sugar, you might see it say like 60% of your daily value. So that's saying in a whole day, it's already taken up 60% of like that food bank, that nutrient bank. So this can be good or bad, it just depends on what you're looking at, but that is one way that you can use.
What I don't understand is what's the average a particular line item should be in your body? You know what I'm saying? Like if you say 60%, should it be 5, and then everybody else 5 to get 100%? You know what I'm saying? It's hard to determine that.
Yeah, so this is based off a 2,000 calorie diet.
2,000 calories.
So then it says that's at the bottom, that's that footnote section right there.
Right.
Most of us are not gonna be eating 2,000 calories. Like, not every person will eat a 2,000 calorie diet. So you don't really want to say, okay, well, 1 gram of saturated fat is 5%. So that means that I can have, I'm not as good at math, y'all, but whatever that would be for 100 would be the amount of saturated fat in grams you could have a day. That would be different for somebody who does eat more like 2,000 calories for a day. Like for sodium, our upper limit, kind of what we want to stay, there's a range of what we want to stay in. So I believe for us, it's like 1,600 milligrams is your goal. I think 2,300 milligrams is what the average person consumes
In a day?
in sodium in a day. So this is going by like, if your amount that we should have is around 1,600 milligrams, it would be 160 would be about 7% of that. But so we don't have to know like, oh, I get 1,600 milligrams in a whole. That's a lot of. There's a lot of numbers you'd have to remember for all of your nutrients for that. That's why we use the daily value as like a quick look, quick easy thing for you to look at to know.
So what should be high on that list? What should we consider, if it's 5% and under is good, and if it's 7 or 10% and over is good? Which one will that be? Like more vitamin D? More...
Yeah, so I would say for this, we want to have enough vitamins and minerals
Okay.
in our diet. So
The
that's
bottom.
going kind of back to these sections.
Getting over these
Having
ones.
enough fiber, having enough of the vitamins and minerals. So like that iron, it's 45% of your daily value, so that's a pretty high iron food. It's calcium, it would be considered a high calcium food as well, because it's got 20%. So that would be, we wanna make sure those are a little bit higher. And then for all of these things, we want those to be 5% or less.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it did.
And you do have on this sheet, it highlights those different sections as well to kind of explain the,
Right.
the places that we want to focus on that. This is just showing the difference between like a whole milk versus a fat-free milk. Your vitamin is pretty much the same, so you're getting 30% of your calcium, 25% of your vitamin D for both of these milks, but one is 150 calories and one is 90. One is 25% of your daily amount of saturated fat, one is 0. So when you're comparing an item, like how to choose a better choice, this one on the right is gonna clearly be the better option. Your ingredients list is gonna be that section at the bottom of your label. And it tells you what is in your food from what it contains most of to what is the least. Okay, so it's listed by weight of the amount in your food. I'm pretty sure this is a box of Cheerios, if I were to guess. I don't know for sure, but it looks to me like Cheerios. So if we're eating Cheerios, we want the first ingredient to be oats, like it's a grain. We're eating cereal for it to be a grain, so we don't want it to say water, right? That would be weird. So the first ingredient here is your whole grain oats. Of course, Cheerios are gonna be a whole grain. This one might be Honey Nut Cheerios, because it's got some sugar in there. I don't know if regular Cheerios has sugar, actually. Could still be regular Cheerios. But you see all the other stuff that they have added to it. This one is likely still enriched, which is why you see all of those vitamins and minerals that are added to it as well. I know we've already talked about this. The other thing we need to be mindful of is sugar in particular does not have to all be called sugar. So here we have it listed in a couple different places. If you were to just add all of that up and call it sugar, it may end up being the first ingredient. But they've gotten very sneaky about how they can write this out. So they'll list it out as different amounts of sugar or different things in the food and call it different names, and that way it cannot be the first ingredient, so that you don't see it and just say, oh my gosh, this has a lot of sugar. You would still be able to see that in your nutrition facts though, for the added sugar amounts. But as far as in the ingredients list, they've gotten very clever. And we also want to pay attention to, just because something says it on the front of the package does not mean they're necessarily telling you the truth. They want you to pick up that item, they want you to buy it. They're here to sell you. So for instance, our Fruit Loops, I think it says good source of fiber, made with whole grains. If we were to actually look at this, it contains 2 grams of fiber, which is 8% of your daily value. So I wouldn't say that's a high fiber food, it's only got 8%. And then it does have sugar as the first ingredient after corn flour. So it's technically your second ingredient of the entire food. 12 grams of sugar per serving all come from added sugars, so we know that that's not necessarily a good thing either. And it does also contain a mix of refined and whole grains. So it's not just a whole grain food, it's got both. But they put that on the front. I'm like, oh, this is a good choice for me, or this is a good choice for my kids or my family, so I'm gonna buy it. And that's how they get you. So any questions about grains? Flag it. So we'll go into a little bit about sugar. So that's our simple step 7, rethink your sweets. So we really want to focus on sugar sweetened snacks, candies, desserts, beverages, all of those types of things to no more than 3 servings a week. The reason why is we're seeing that sugar is really making us sick. So there's tons of negative health impacts that we have from eating a diet that has lots of sugar. So things like heart disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, diabetes, obesity, tooth decay, higher blood pressure, higher blood sugar, higher triglycerides, lower good cholesterol, gout, all the things. So this is one of the aspects of the Medway that has the ability to decrease many of the chronic diseases that we see in America. A big thing that we're also seeing is that sugar causes lots of inflammation. We know inflammation in the body is not good. It tells you something is wrong. So we want to try to, of course, reduce that as much as possible. But when we eat a high sugar diet, especially without eating lots of fruits and vegetables in it as well, we see inflammation can increase that risk for things like diabetes, heart disease, and other chronic diseases. And most of the chronic diseases we see in America are caused by systemic inflammation. So having a lot of that inflammation throughout the whole body. And what we're really talking about here is the added sugar. So not necessarily what we call natural sugars. So this is any sugar that is added to your food. So white table sugar, any sugar that's eaten separately or added to foods at the table. Natural sugars are going to be what's naturally occurring in the food. This is mainly things like our fruits, some of our vegetables also have some natural sugars. Think of like a sweet potato. You cook it really low and slow, you'll have like that sugar ooze out of it. That's all still natural sugars. And then of course milk as well, or dairy products, your yogurts, those have some natural sugars too. So we do tend to crave sugar from birth. Our bodies are predisposed to liking sweet things. So it does release those feel-good chemicals into our brain whenever we have sugar, things like serotonin and those endorphins. If you were to give a baby a spoonful of sugar, he'd probably be happy about it. If you gave a baby a spoonful of salt, you think he would be happy? Yeah. So sugar is something like we just naturally crave. Salt, on the other hand, is something that we learn to want more salt. So it's based on how we cook our food, how we season our food, things that we eat. If it doesn't have salt in it, for instance, a pasta sauce, or, well, that's not a good example because it's got sugar, or there's sugar in it. But some things just taste off sometimes, and you're like, it just needs a little salt, right? That's because we're predisposed to wanting it to taste a certain way with that amount of sodium. So the average American consumes around 152 pounds of sugar a year. It's a lot. And this ends up being about 26 to 30 teaspoons in one day. So this is 3 times the amount that we are recommended to be eating. And where we're really getting it is in these types of foods. So mainly our beverages, but also things like your grain-based desserts, your candies, and then a little bit from our dairy products as well. So this is about how much we should have in a day, 6 to 9 teaspoons, which really doesn't sound like much. To give you a context for how much is like grams-wise, what that would be, it is 24 to 36 grams of sugar. So there's 4 grams in a teaspoon. 4 times 6, 4 times 9, you get 24 to 36 grams in a day. So women are recommended to have 6 teaspoons or 24 grams of sugar, as well as children. Women and children are in the same category. Men are recommended to have around 9 teaspoons or 36 grams. But again, this is thinking of how much we're actually eating. Our recommendation versus our reality. We're having around 23 teaspoons of sugar, and a lot of that is coming from our beverages. So, especially in our processed foods, there's tons of sugar that's added to them, or there's just sugar in general added to them. So it's making us think that we need to have that certain food taste a certain way. So that was where I was going with pasta sauce, was what my brain was thinking about that with. If you get a pasta sauce that has, typically they're adding a little sugar in it, right, to balance out that acidity. If it doesn't have that sugar in it, we think it tastes weird, it tastes off. That's because we're predisposed to tasting it with a little bit of sugar in it. So if you look at some things, there's lots of different foods out there that are not even very sweet, but they add sugar to it so that we crave it to taste a certain way. And so we say that our palate is being assaulted whenever we're buying foods in the grocery store these days. And sugar's listed as many different names. Here's just a huge list of different sugars. Anything that ends in OSE is going to be a sugar on your ingredients list. Corn sweetener, cane sugar, agave nectar, honey, raw sugar, maple syrup, all of those are still considered sugar. And this is where we have a lot of questions. People are like, well, isn't honey okay? I thought that was a healthy choice. What about like sugar in the raw? So, and high fructose corn syrup, that was like all the rage for a little bit about that's a super bad thing for us to have in our food. So, sugar compared to high fructose corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup is a very cheap, very concentrated sugar, and it's used in a lot of our foods, and it is not any more harmful than regular sugar. We say all sugar should be consumed sparingly, not just high fructose corn syrup. So this became popular in the 80s and 90s. It's been around since the 1950s, but in the 80s and 90s, they started using it more in our food supply. And so we started seeing our obesity go up, and people saw, well, people are eating more high fructose corn syrup. So those two have to be linked, but they are not. We still are seeing obesity continue to be an issue. And what really people were consuming was like high calorie foods that contained this high fructose corn syrup, not necessarily the corn syrup itself. Honey is another one. Honey is not any healthier than other types of sugar. It's still sugar. It still counts towards your daily sugar intake. Like any other sugar, honey should be consumed sparingly. Agave nectar. This is not healthier than other types of sugar. It is still sugar. It still counts towards your sugar intake for the day. Like any other sugar, it should be consumed sparingly, and literally all the same exact words for sugar in the raw. Sugar in the raw is just regular white table sugar that they add a little bit of molasses to it to make it look brown. So it's not really any different. So takeaway is sugar is sugar is sugar is sugar is sugar is sugar is sugar. Doesn't matter what you call it, it's still sugar. Your body is still going to break all of these sugars down the exact same way, use it the exact same way. It don't matter which one you choose, it's still sugar. All of those things that I showed you, sugar is doing to our body. If we have too much of it, all of these things will do to your body if you have too much.
That's right.
Can do. I shouldn't say will. Can. So, to be really good at picking out that sugar is to make sure that we're reading those labels. So we have a couple different here, and these are all foods that are traditionally not thought of as being sweet. So the top left is a spaghetti sauce, and this is an example of an ideal spaghetti sauce. So this one does not have any added sugar, so 0 grams of added sugar. But what we want to look for is any ideal spaghetti sauce has, we really want to aim, of course, talking about that percentage, it to be lower, like 5% or less in that added sugar section. The next one, and that one's 0, of course, because there's no added sugar. The next one is bread. So this is another good example of bread. It has 0 grams of added sugar. When you find things like honey wheat bread, it's going to have, of course, a lot of sugar added to it. The one in the middle is wheat thins, another food we don't typically think of as being a really sweet food. It's a cracker. It has 4 grams of added sugar. It's only about 8% of what you're supposed to have in a whole day, but it's still 4 grams is 1 teaspoon, so you get to 6 teaspoons. You just use that up on crackers. You really want to use it up on crackers? That's up to you. But you have to consider that whenever you're thinking of your sugar budget for the day. And then same thing for the one on the right. This is a honey roasted peanut butter.
I just knew that's what that was.
Yeah. Roasted peanuts is the first ingredient, and the second one is sugar. And then honey is actually the 5th ingredient. So it's towards the end. So they don't use a ton of honey in there. But it is still sugar. That's still not going to be a great option. So it is in a lot of our processed foods, even things that we don't think of as sweet may tend to have sugar in it. 2 foods that can have a lot of added sugar are things like our cereals and breakfast bars. So kind of a rule of thumb is to do any cereal that's less than 6 grams of sugar per serving, if you're a big cereal person, or bars that are 5 grams of sugar per 100 calories. And those 2 things are kind of hard to find if you actually start looking at labels. A better option, of course, is going to be to not eat more of these processed foods and just eat something like oatmeal for breakfast, or like eggs and toast. We already talked about that. So again, here's another example of a label. So high fructose corn syrup is that first ingredient. Second is water, and then you have sugar written in a couple different ways, like molasses corn syrup, just sugar is written. So if you were to add all of those up, it may likely be a lot. It could be the first. What is the first ingredient? It's already the first ingredient, but it would be even more sugar. But really for this is a marinade that's probably pretty expensive. You're essentially paying for an expensive sugar water, vinegar, right? So you could probably make this at home. And this is a great way to do it. So this is kind of a simple formula for you. And you can use this as well for your dressings. So any of the marinades and dressings can be made this way. You choose an acid, then you choose an oil, and then you choose your seasonings, and you just shake it all up, put it over your poultry, fish, meat, whatever you're eating, and you're good to go. So same concept here for your dressings, and there's tons of like pre-made recipe formulations of like dressings and marinades on the Med Instead of Meds website. So y'all do have that on your handouts. The other big part is don't drink sugar. So like I said, a lot of things are sugar sweetened beverages, and these are a few examples. So Gatorade, coffee, especially the fancy ones you get at coffee shops, some juice, teas, sodas, all of those places are what we consider liquid calories. And liquid calories and food calories are not the same. Whenever we chew food, it starts to kind of send those signals to our brain, like, and to our gut, hey, food is coming, and they'll start to talk to each other. So that way, when your belly says, okay, I'm full, it can send those signals up to your brain to say, hey, stop eating, we're full, and you stop eating. If you're just drinking, we're not doing the chewing, we don't have that same benefit, right? We're not, by the time that it hits our belly and we're so full, it's too late. Like we've already just drank so much calories at that point. So we want to try to eat our food rather than drink it in a lot of, especially empty calories, like things like soda and tea. So to give you an example of how much sugar is in a couple of these things, so for soda, we see about 17 teaspoons.
How many ounces is that?
This is a 20-ounce soda. So this will be like probably the one you get from the gas station, the more normal size one. And it doesn't matter what color they are, orange, clear, green, they're all kind of around that same amount. Tea, so this is 20 ounces of sweet tea, about 16 teaspoons of sugar.
If it's extra sweet.
I bet Woody Corral
I
is
was
very
gonna say, it
more.
depends on where you get it from.
Woody Corral got a sugar.
Or who makes it, yeah. I used to work in the restaurant business and, I mean, I knew how to make sweet tea.
Right.
I don't know that it had 16 teaspoons, it probably had more like 20. Probably not so close to that. A better option would be to kind of make your own beverages if you're looking for something different. These are 2 recipes on the website. There's a ginger flavored green tea that you can make. I have not made that one, but I have made the cranberry lime soda, and that one is very good, very good.
That ginger sounds good to me.
You can also do like
Ginger.
fruit in your waters, or like different vegetables in your water, and that will
Yes.
help to give it a little flavor. So if you're somebody who just does not like plain water, and I also urge you to try to figure out like, okay, do I like more room temperature water? Do I like it super iced down? Like figure out what kind of water you think tastes better in terms of how the temperature, because that makes a big difference. Some people like hate room temperature water, and some people cannot drink water with ice. Everyone's different, right? But these are 2 recipes as well on the website. Another flip for you is to make your own oatmeal instead of buying the prepared oatmeals or the instant. For one, the fiber, what we were talking about with those oats earlier, not the instant oats. But for 2 is you have a lot more added sugar that's going to be in those instant oatmeals. And when you make it yourself, you can still put some honey on top, but you're in control of how much sugar, not those companies that are selling you the oatmeal. Same concept here. You can just take plain yogurt, add your own sweetener. You can put some jam in it, stir it up. It is really good if you do it that way. But you could do like 1 teaspoon of jam and it would be delicious versus having the company put 3 teaspoons in there. So this is really us just like taking control of our food and trying to be a little bit more mindful about what's in that food. I have made this recipe many times for our classes. They love it. It's just yogurt. You put it on a parchment pan, like a sheet pan with parchment paper, and spread it really thin, and then you top it with whatever you want. So we normally do different nuts, some frozen fruits. Some people do coconut. I don't really like coconut like that, but if you like coconut, you can sprinkle that on there. And then you stick it in your freezer flat for a little bit, and then whenever it's frozen, you pull it out and you can break it into like bark pieces, and it's a really, really yummy treat, especially this
Wow.
time of year. And you're getting some protein. You can monitor how much sugar is in what you're eating, all that. So we want to try to break our sugar habit. I think a lot of us can get stuck on eating sugar. One thing that I always compare this to is when I used to cover Duplin and